Excellent. Okay, well, thank you, Jan, Rudy, and Steve. The information provided. So what's happening, kind of the timeline here, is the self-imposed crisis that Congress has put us in. The axe falls on March 1st, which is approaching very rapidly. So it's up to the Senate and the House to really dig their heads out of the sand between now and then and come to some kind of big grand bargain. You always hear them talk about the grand bargain that's going to deal with the national debt, that is an all-encompassing approach. Well, they seem pretty incapable of coming to even a small bargain because it's a very dysfunctional institution. Both the Senate and the House are extraordinarily dysfunctional. And so really it's going to take all sorts of pressure, all the pressure that anybody can muster to every elected federal official that we have, whether it's Bruce Braley, who's got his office right across the street. He's got a representative here at Tavis Hall. You can direct some of your questions and frustrations towards, or Senator Grassley, who's got an office just across the river over on Commercial. He needs lots and lots of pressure because it's becoming, every year that goes by, it seems like he becomes more and more out of touch with what Iowans actually need. And it's just
keeps
further.
his office door locked.
That might be my fault.
The next time we go see our legal counsel, just give me some of your cards after the meeting. I'll start sticking them. Because their office is right across the hall.
So just to put kind of some of this into perspective, some numbers. So everybody in Washington is concerned about the national debt, particularly the little Tea Partiers are very concerned about national debt. They're always talking about debt. Well, if you put it into perspective of we're nowhere near the debt crisis that's happening in Europe. When you compare our debt to our GDP, it is not comparable. And so when you talk about the economic downturn that we've had, we're just now starting to crawl out of that. And the idea of cutting all these programs that benefit working people and that put people to work is just complete backwards thinking of any tried and true economic formula that gets the economy going again. So the national debt right now sits at about $16.5 trillion. And that is definitely sizable. But where did that debt come from? It came from Ronald Reagan's Cold War. It came from George Bush's unfunded prescription drug bill that was just a big giveaway to the pharmaceutical industry. It came from the cuts that George Bush gave, the tax cuts that George Bush gave, and it came from the unfunded credit card wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. That is a large portion of where our national debt has come from. It didn't come from putting too much money in schools. It didn't come from overpaying firefighters. It didn't come from giving too much money to cops or from putting too many roofs on the houses of poor people's homes. That's just asinine. It came from the extraordinarily rich exploiting us, and it came from getting into wars that we didn't need to be in, and it came from just ridiculous military spending during the Cold War era. And so, if we
Chris,
close,
it also came from the attack on the middle class.
yes, and it came from
Starting from Ford administration on, there's been an ongoing attack on the middle class.
Right.
Well, I mean, because they devalued the dollar so many times that what we earn now is such less than what we used to earn.
right.
So a good portion came from the attack on the middle class.
Right, because the wages of everybody in this room, it's been largely stagnant since the 1970s. We had a good couple of decades of prosperity coming out of the New Deal, which is where our organization came out of, was trying to preserve and expand the New Deal, until the 70s when we really started chipping away at those programs, and you saw union membership decline. There is a direct correlation between the health of the economy for the working and middle class people and union membership. If you don't have a voice, if you don't have a union backing you, you don't have anything really at the end of the day. And so as we've seen our wages be stagnant, our power as consumers and our ability to pay taxes, because we're the actual people that pay taxes, the corporations aren't paying taxes, they're getting more and more money and they're paying no taxes, we're getting less money, our wages staying stagnant, so there's less money going into the system. because the people that pay, the people that participate, and the people that stimulate the economy have less and less, and that's true. That's been happening since the 70s and really escalated in the 90s when we started going in all these bogus trade agreements, namely NAFTA, and we've had all these trade agreements modeled after NAFTA ever since then. So just if we close all these corporate loopholes that we're talking about, that's $3.6 trillion over 10 years. So that's a huge chunk of change. It should be considered low-hanging fruit because there's only 2% of the population that even remotely falls into that category. It's nobody here, it's nobody that lives in Waterloo, I'll tell you that for sure. Barely anybody in Iowa that this falls into. So that's just to put a little more perspective on things, but I'd like to just open it up for questions. Go ahead, raise your hand, and Colin, you can be directed towards the whole panel or just to someone specific. Go ahead, Pam.
To you, Chris, or anyone else who would like to. I just like the devil's advocate argument. What would the corporations say about why they deserve what they've got?
Well, I mean, they're going to say that they're the job creators, that, you know, it's going to limit their ability to hire. Well, they haven't been hiring anyways, so, I mean, it's a low bowl to me. But, so
Right
yes.
now, the corporations are sitting on profits, you know, way beyond anything they've had before. And, you know, if you tax them a little bit more, it wouldn't bite into their bottom line, it's their profits. And, you know, they